All right, music fans, welcome. Harmless Dave here on the Harmless Dave channel, talking about Daryl Hall again and John Oates, and doing what I do in real time for a few real people out here, just like you there, and like me here. So before I talk about Hall and Oates, this band here is really cool. Reckless Kelly and their album The Last Frontier. Um, Good replacement music for worn out Americana sounding stuff like Springsteen and Seeger and John Mellencamp and maybe even Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. All right. So, some good music here. And if you haven't heard of these guys, you should check them out. I think you'll like them. If not, hey, you get a full refund, right? Because you're just going to stream the music. I actually bought a CD so I could use it in videos. Also, folks, if you want to subscribe to the channel, that's helpful. I did go over 5K, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, making up for the 82,000 I no longer, well, technically I still have them. So I might do some podcasting. Who knows? Because I can upload audio. People are saying, can you do me a favor though and just follow me here? Can you do that? I know people don't like change, but it's not that hard to subscribe to a new channel, especially if it's the same guy and he's giving you a link. All right. So, yeah, I've probably said enough there. Okay, the Hall and Oates thing, right? So, the video I did about Daryl Hall really blew up. It's like 10,000, which is for this channel a big deal. That's twice as many subscribers as I have, which is unusual because typically I'm getting a few hundred views. And especially when I get into politics, people are just like, nope, not going to watch it. And they tell me they're not going to watch it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Do what you'd like. And, all I can say is thank you for those who do watch and who make comments that are decent and nice. I get all kinds of interesting things. And it's not a great way to start your day when you're getting a bunch of negativity. So I'm just saying, folks, I am the arbiter of everything when it comes to the comments section. So choose wisely. All right. That's all I'm saying. So back in March, there was this interview with People magazine. Daryl Hall speaks on John Oates' feud and reveals why duo won't reunite. That ship has gone to the bottom of the ocean. Now, Daryl Hall having some difficulties singing these days. John Oates, not so much. If you go listen to his last album, I mean, and probably listening to Daryl Hall's album in the studio, it's probably okay, right? But out on the road, not so much, where I haven't heard people complaining about Oates, but, Daryl came out and said, hey, I'm doing all the work here. Um, the songs with his lead vocal, this is Daryl Hall talking, are the songs he wrote. And all the other ones, which is 90%, are the ones I wrote, said Hall. So Daryl Hall throwing down really hard against John Oates. Now, what's interesting is he waited all of these years to say this. I mean, they were together for a long time. And Hall and Oates is a recognizable brand. And so breaking up that brand probably isn't really good for Daryl Hall. But yet, here we are. And he's the solo artist, and he's out there telling his audience that they like songs when they're walking out on him, which, again, you'd have to go back and check out that review that I reviewed. So he says here, yeah, it's very frustrating, adding that he felt his contribution went a bit unnoticed. Who thought that Daryl Hall's contributions weren't really a big deal? I thought that both of them were contributing, and I never had an issue and said, whoa, boy, Daryl Hall's just not doing enough in Hall and Oates. I mean, he's singing most of the songs, right? It would be more, I think, interesting if they sang together or they worked together and maybe did a few more duets like She's Gone or You've Lost That Love and Feeling. And that proved to me that they sound great as a duo, both of them singing, but you don't hear that too often. And some of the John Oates songs are pretty good. You got to go and listen to them, but they're pretty good. So in another interview with GK, or I'm sorry, not GK, GQ, GK, that cool magazine that's okay and fashionable. GQ, the songwriting collaboration was that there were no rules, he told the publication. This is John Oates. We'd write a song separately. We'd write a song partially. We'd operate almost as editors of each other or have a true collaboration and everything in between. So according to Oates, it kind of sounds like they would collaborate. But according to Hall, it sounds like he did 90% of the work. And everything with an Oates lead vocal is just Oates. Anyway, John Oates, who is far more conciliatory toward Daryl Hall, says, what I think happened, obviously, Daryl's voice is so outstanding, and his voice really cut through the radio way better than mine. He says, I'm a good singer, but I'm not a great singer. But when you're standing next to Daryl, he's a great singer. So naturally, radio kind of gravitated to his voice, and his voice became the signature of the sound. Sounds like Oates is being humble and self-deprecating and giving credit where credit is due. In an email statement to People, Oates called Hall's characterization of his songwriting contributions highly inaccurate. Interesting. Oates says this: collaboration takes many forms and is seldom completely equal. The real magic lies in the finished songs that we created together, and these songs would never have existed in their recognizable form without my and others' contributions. Oates added that, in his case, the personal decision to stop touring with Hall was the result of many things, but most importantly, I've reached a time in my creative life when I felt that it was time for me to focus 100% of my personal songwriting and recording projects. So he says 100% on my personal songwriting and recording projects, which is kind of interesting. For me, it is time to leave the wonderful Hall and Oates classic legacy of songs and recordings behind, to be enjoyed and celebrated by the world forever, he continued. Of course, back in November of 2023, Hall filed a lawsuit and was granted a restraining order against Oates in an attempt to stop Oates' alleged plans to sell his share of a joint business venture to a third party. In other words, Oates wanted to cash out, and Hall did not want him to cash out. Hall believed the sale would be a violation of a business agreement previously reached by the duo, and said the sale would cause him irreparable harm, imminent irreparable harm. Like, Daryl Hall doesn't have enough money, and Oates wants to cash out because that's probably a smart thing to do now. In May of 2024, Oates told People magazine that he and Hall never really had a problem butting heads creatively, but it became more tense when it came to the business side of things. I think what happened was our partnership was established 50 years ago, and the documentation of that partnership was outdated and completely irrelevant to the people we became 50 years later. By the way, this happens in every band, especially when at the beginning, these bands probably didn't know how successful and how important they would be. Oates added that when it was time to reevaluate how to modernize and how to make that partnership function in a better way, we had changed so radically as people that there was really no way to compromise on that. That's interesting. At the same point, he revealed he felt good about the music he made with Hall, regardless of their relationship. They played together in 2022, by the way, and Oates said they have no plans to ever play together again. Those songs will remain as the soundtrack for people's lives, The songs don't go away, said Oates, and that's the beauty of this long term partnership. The thing that we created will endure. That's the important thing. I'm proud of everything we've done. Whereas Daryl Hall seems like he's not as proud, and he's basically saying he did all the work and Oates didn't do very much. So that's how this all got going. And John Oates wanted to get a piece of the action before, he died. And I don't blame him for doing that. I don't know if it's the right thing to do necessarily, but from what I understand, it's beneficial to the artist more so now than it would be if they pass away and then somebody else gets to deal with all this stuff. I mean, they might as well take the lump sum payout, in other words, now. And I think that's what Oates was trying to do. And Daryl Hall said, not so fast. So I'm not sure where this is, if there will be a settlement here or some kind of an agreement. It's interesting that John Oates says that they've changed so much as people. So these guys obviously aren't friends, and they weren't friends for a fairly long time. And this partnership was really only about name ID more than, hey, we're in this cool band together. No, it's pretty sad, actually, how this is all sort of working itself out, which it isn't. It's working itself in the wrong direction. So I don't know. Some people don't care about Hall and Oates. They never liked them to begin with. I'm a fan. I had voices on record. I had a bunch. I had H2O. I had pretty much everything they did in the 80s, and even got into some of their 70s stuff. They've got a lot of underrated stuff too that didn't get on the radio from almost every album they put out. So definitely a catalog worth going back into and checking out if you haven't. Also, if you want some new material for your American music collection, check out Reckless Kelly and the Last Frontier. Really good stuff. And to support this channel, Patreon, YouTube memberships, Buy Me a Coffee, and PJ Rock Super Chats. It's helpful. And keep watching the videos. And again, if you're going to make comments on videos, all I can say is comment wisely. I am in control of all these comments. I hold all the comments before they're approved. And if there is a lot of negativity, a lot of pain, a lot of insulting going on, I don't have to permit that type of stuff on the channel. I just don't. And I'm getting too old to deal with it. And, you might want to find somebody that you can bash and have fun with each and every day. And if that makes you happy, then, more power to you. But at this stage of my life, yeah, I'm kind of done with it.